Theranos founder Elizabeth Holmes gets sentenced to over 11 years in prison. Let's get into the details. My name is Jamahl Kersey. I'm the principal attorney at Kersey Law, a boutique criminal defense firm in San Diego, California. And in this video, we're talking about Elizabeth Holmes. And if you watch the Hulu series, The Dropout, then you know the backstory. If you didn't watch it, then you probably should because it's really good. But here's the quick scoop. Elizabeth Holmes was and is a brilliant visionary. She wanted to basically revolutionize blood testing. And so she came up with this idea of being able to run hundreds of laboratory tests with just one prick of the finger. And this was a pretty great idea. Elizabeth was studying electrical and chemical engineering at Stanford. So this was just really high level stuff. But she made the bold decision to drop out of college to start her company, and Theranos was founded in 2004. And I really just gotta applaud the guts to go out and start your own company, especially at 19 years old. That's such a bold decision, and hey, I just respect that. And you know, the idea was ultimately to make blood tests cheaper, convenient, and more accessible to customers. And this thing ultimately blew up. I mean, Theranos got to the point where they were striking partnerships with Walgreens and Safeway. These were deals worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Capital Blue Cross and Cleveland Clinic had also signed on to offer Theranos to their patients. Holmes actually went on to become the world's youngest self-made female billionaire with a net worth around $4.5 billion. But, you know, with this came problems. So there were Theranos scientists. They had concerns about the tests being rushed out to the public. Eventually, there were FDA investigations in which they found major inaccuracies in the testing. And what really just blew this whole thing open were 2015 reports from the Wall Street Journal. And these reports just really exposed some serious problems with the Theranos technology. Patients had been given inaccurate results relating to cancer and HIV. And can you just imagine how dangerous that could potentially be for people? So you had whistleblowers and other witnesses giving detailed accounts about how Elizabeth Holmes and her then boyfriend / Theranos executive, Sunny Balwani, they both basically deceived patients, they deceived their partners, they deceived investors and their employees about the company's performance, like the strength of its performance and the capabilities of the technology that they were using. Investors had put up at least $700 million into Theranos, and some people have it at closer to $1 billion. And, you know, at its peak, Theranos was actually valued, you know, on paper at $9 billion. That's a lot of money. And so based on duping investors and basically defrauding patients, Holmes was indicted in 2018 and Theranos shut down in that same year. Elizabeth Holmes went to trial late last year and she was convicted in January. This trial lasted 3 months, and that's a pretty long time for a trial. But the reality is, with the complexity of the science and the language of the investors and everything that was going on both fronts, it just would be a long time to explain. You'd need a lot of witnesses, a lot of experts in order for the prosecution to prove their case. And essentially, prosecutors allege that she knowingly misled doctors and patients about her company's Edison machine. And this machine was supposed to be able to detect cancer, diabetes, and other conditions just using a few drops of blood. But the reality is the Edison machine never actually made it into the stores. Eventually, Theranos basically had the blood samples tested at their lab on the very machines that they were supposed to be upending and replacing. If you saw the series, then you saw how that went down. Prosecutors also accused Holmes of vastly exaggerating Theranos' performance to its investors. And so the jury found her guilty on 4 counts of fraud. She was found not guilty on 4 other charges, and the jury just failed to reach a verdict on 3 more counts. She was actually looking at a max of 20 years in prison. The prosecutors asked for 15 years in prison. The defense came back with asking for only 18 months of house arrest. Their position was that Elizabeth Holmes was a very smart girl who had really good intentions, and that at the end of the day, all she wanted to do was help people. One of her lawyers had pointed out that she never actually cashed out the Theranos stock. So you didn't have the typical, startup that blows up and everything that comes along with that, like the yacht parties and planes and large mansions and all that kind of stuff. And one of the arguments that he made was that we have a conviction here where the defendant's only motive was to build technology. In support of her position at sentencing, Elizabeth Holmes had over 100 letters of support from Stanford professors, venture capital investors. Even a senator wrote a letter on her behalf, basically showing her out to be a really good person who basically was a victim of circumstances. And I've talked about letters of support before in these videos and how powerful it can be to have other members of the community basically saying how long they've known you, how they know you, and many good things that they can say about you. You have a good character, you have a good heart, you're smart, hardworking. All these things can make a difference at sentencing. The judge found that she had caused millions and millions of dollars in losses to investors. And if this wasn't bad enough, I think it's having put people's lives at risk that really ends up being the most offensive thing about this case. A person putting their trust in this machine and this technology and getting results and getting a misdiagnosis of, say, cancer, diabetes, HIV. Being shocked at the results would be the least of your worries, right? Modifying medication, modifying a lifestyle, these are changes that could actually exacerbate a problem, or you may not even have a problem in the first place, or it could possibly lead to death. And people did, in fact, switch up diets, they switched up medications. Ultimately, there were tens of thousands of voided or revised test results. So Elizabeth Holmes was sentenced to over 11 years in prison. And let me know what you think. Do you think this was a fair sentence? Do you think it was too much? Do you think it wasn't enough? Elizabeth Holmes is currently pregnant. She actually had a kid last year, and the judge agreed to allow her to turn herself in April of next year. If you watched the series, you saw her then boyfriend, Sunny Balwani. He was actually charged as well. They were tried separately, and he was ultimately found guilty of fraud earlier in this summer, and he's facing sentencing next month. Elizabeth Holmes, she was super ambitious, obviously, and I just think that ambition, setting goals and smashing them just ultimately, got to her head. All the fame, she had made the cover of Forbes, she did TED Talks, she was on the stage with Bill Clinton, she got high-powered investors, raised almost $1 billion for her company. It was all going good until the house of cards crashed down. That's gonna be it for this video. If you got something out of it, please show me some love and hit the like button. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel and turn on the notifications so you never miss a new video when it drops. As always, I wanna thank you so much for watching, and until next time, peace.